Hey y'all, I want to welcome you first and foremost to Noir Talks, Noir Thoughts, and this is going to be my first podcast on everything, conspiracy related. I openly identify as a conspiracy theorist. I know that's a controversial title on both sides, but I don't see it that way. Like, it's not an insult to me that I happen to think outside the box, that there's some weird things going on in our world and I want to look into them, try to get as close to the truth as possible. So, if that's your thing, then stick around because that's what we'll be doing today and from here on out. Just to get right into it, I have about 3 topics I want to get into today. I don't want to be too long-winded, just for the first podcast. I want to keep it cute, keep it short. And the first topic I wanted to get into is about, finding positive music today. What inspired me to get into this topic was that recently Chance the Rapper, who is a young Chicago native rapper, dropped his 3rd mixtape, I believe. And the title of it's called Coloring Book. And I was listening to it, and right away I noticed that I felt different, and not in some weird, the music got to me kind of way. Like, I know we know about things in music, but that's exactly why I'm talking about this, is because it made me feel good. Now, there are songs that I like today, songs that I get excited to hear. Those are my joints, I want to hear them, but they don't really leave me feeling positive like this did. And I think it's because of a lot of the stuff he was saying, more so than just it sounded good or I think he's a good rapper or I'm a fan. It's the subject matter he was touching on. If you're not familiar with him, he's a really talented guy. He's been around for a while. He's not super mainstream, but it's almost unfair to say that he's completely underground at this point too. And if you've heard of him, you probably are familiar with his acid rap, which is the last project he had before this that left a really good taste in a lot of people's mouths and really kind of opened the door for him. And the one major difference between the two is I feel like acid rap, while it was amazing, it's a really, really dope piece of art. If you're into hip hop, you'll probably really appreciate it. I feel Coloring Book is more of what we need. Because it wasn't just about the fact that this guy is good and, people complain about rap and it being trash now. It's because this guy is openly, proclaiming himself to be a Christian. He's openly talking about, not dealing with or talking to the devil. He's exposing that kind of, he lightly touches on like the dark elements of the industry. He does all this without being preachy. And, this is the thing. I'm not saying that for positive music it has to be holy, church-going gospel music, because I personally have seen some issues with that genre as well. I don't need it to be some holy roller fest, but I get so tired of these songs. It's always, I sold my soul and Jesus died and that's okay. It's always this really dark stuff, or these crystals and magic and ritual songs, and you just get tired of it. You get tired of seeing it over and over again and hearing it over and over again. And it does, to me, begin to have an effect on you that's not positive. And when you look into the history of what they do with the music and how they do the rituals on this, and several artists have confirmed this, or several insiders, they've exposed this side of the industry where they'll do rituals or spells on the records before they're released to the public. Once you see about that, and then you see these things they do in the music videos, and you can only imagine what they're doing behind the scenes, you start to get a feel for why the music is the way that it is. And I personally believe in energy, not in some kind of new agey Aleister Crowley or whatever type of way, but I do believe that there are things that they attach to these records and these songs, and even in these music videos, and I feel like those things travel with that music. They follow it, and I feel like that's why a lot of this music has these people acting kind of crazy. Like, if you've ever heard of stan culture, if you haven't, take a look into it and just get a feel. I feel like that's why these people get brainwashed, or they go above and beyond for some of these artists and these songs. It's that energy attached to it. It makes, or how if you feel, we know music can also affect our mood and how we feel, and that's just what it does naturally anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and get into what makes this album so good, what like some of the songs that he talked on and why I feel it does the complete opposite of everything I just talked about. Now, I listened to this album about 2 or 3 times when it first came out, just because first I was just shocked that that this new release that everybody was talking about was like this. At this point in time that I'm making this podcast, probably played it a lot more than I should have, because it's just really, really good. And I was trying to make sure I was hearing all the words, and so I'd be able to come to you and tell you everything without leaving out anything that I felt was important. And I know like the very first song right off the bat is it's called All We Got. And he has a line in there that captured me, and I feel like it's the best line on the whole mixtape. And it's, I get my word from the sermon, I do not talk to the serpent. Again, like, I'm not trying to be preachy or Bible thumpy. That's not my gig. I am a believer, but I'm not going to come at you with scripture. I'm not going to come at you from a pulpit. That's not my thing. But I'm not going to knock this guy for basically saying he walks with God. He's not talking to Satan. Like, why would I, like, I don't feel that's preachy to say. But I know in today's society or system, maybe it is. But I really appreciated that line, because everybody is, through their actions, through the esoteric meanings of their songs and videos, through the little slick things that they say, they're saying the exact opposite of that. I mean, I was feeling that line so much I had to rewind it and see if that's really what he said. But I'm here for it. He did. And he also said that this is for the kids of the King of all kings, telling you who his music is for. And I think that he touched on that, like, you can finally say your favorite rapper is Christian or whatever, and it's not, you don't have to be embarrassed about it, or he's not a bad representation of us. Now, what I really wanted to get into, I want to leave you with this because I want to be fair. And I did have to look into him to see, as far as he's in it, because I'm not naive to these people that will smile in your face and deliver you, I'm a conspiracy theorist, 9/11, Sandy Hook, pyramids, all smiling, all, I'm down with it, I'm eccentric, I'm crazy. We've seen Russell Brand, we've seen Tila Tequila, we've seen B.O.B., and they're all up to something, and it's not good. They try to act like they're down, and they know, but essentially I feel they're deceivers. And I looked, and I wasn't really finding anything, but I will say that in terms of like imagery or tweets, but one thing did catch my eye was a picture of him. I couldn't find any one-eyed shots or anything like that, but he was wearing a hat. And if you're listening to this podcast on SoundCloud, or anywhere else, I'd recommend going to the video if you can of this, because I will have images and such to support what I'm saying as I go on throughout the podcast. But he had an image, there's an image of him where he has a hat, and it says "Ill America," but it's like as if it was, the combined words of Illuminati and America. Now, I don't know if that's some sort of statement, like, how people say America KKK to say that America's racist or what, or something of the sort, but it didn't really set off any warning bells at me. You could take that how you need to take it. I didn't really get anything from that. He could be saying, is he saying that, America's controlled and who it's controlled by, or is that a shout out? Like, I don't, that's the best that I could find in terms of pictures. Maybe you can find something else, or you have. Maybe you are like listening to me talk about this guy and you're like, nope, I know about him. Well, let me know, but I didn't see anything on that note. It's just that based on his lyrical content and the things he said when kind of critiquing this country and critiquing what's going on, I would assume that it was a statement to show you who we're controlled by or what we're about or what our country's about. But I could be wrong. And normally I don't even have to look as hard as I did to try to find something. With other artists, it's just it's instant. You just see by the time you get down past like the first 10 one-eyed pictures, you're on to the Baphomet and you're, the pyramid. I didn't really find any of that with him. Now, I'm not saying that guarantees him to be kosher, but I feel it's a damn good start by comparison to, again, his peers. But while we're talking about his peers, that is something that I do want to bring up, because like I said, imagery-wise, I couldn't find anything in tweets. I didn't see anything. But I do have to address his association. His mixtape does contain a few known celebs who we know are puppets. And what interests me, with the exception of 2 Chainz, is some of the celebs on there have been vilified. The rest of them are kind of underground people that you probably haven't heard of, but again, minus 2 Chainz, from whom I'm about to list, the rest of them have been vilified, have had attempts on their lives, or their careers have been halted. Or they've had their programming breaking down. And those people would be like Kanye West, Justin Bieber, T-Pain, and Lil Wayne. Now, he does have some people who are doing fine, though. And those 2 that I noticed would be Future and Jeremiah. And I believe Young Thug is on there, and I would count him as well. Everyone else that is featured, like I said, is underground or they're indie. Now, this is worth mentioning because usually an indicator that an artist has joined up or is joining up is that they get to work with current popular artists. You're not going to get to the kind of creme de la creme in your genre. You're not going to get a song with Beyonce or Nicki Minaj unless you're doing what you're told. You're not going to get a song with the hottest band out if you're not doing what they want you to do. You're not getting rewarded, essentially. What did Rick Ross say? To get a verse from me, you got to be initiated. I believe he said that in So Sophisticated, and in my research on these people, I'm inclined to agree. And I was skeptical about this. That did give me warning bells, and I was looking more into him off that. And it seems to me he did address that in one particular line in a song called Finish Line. He said, labels told me to my face that they own my friends. And that made me think, maybe he's aware of their situations, because Chance himself, what's big about him, like a lot of people keep noting, is that he's not signed to any labels. In fact, he shared a story with XXL, I believe, about how he was about to sign to Sony, but his father called him and essentially told him, don't sign anything. And I don't know how his father knew he was about to sign, or that was what was about to happen, because I don't believe he told him, because he sounded shocked himself that his father knew. But he wound up not signing, and he's gone on record as calling labels the devil. He's been very open on multiple occasions, that he is not a fan of labels. And No Problem, which is another song on the mixtape Coloring Book, one of the bigger ones that's been labeled the best song on the mixtape, I'm inclined to agree. If one more label tries to stop me, it's going to be some dreadhead niggas in your lobby. Essentially saying labels have been bothering him, have been getting in his way. And me and my friend had a discussion on this when we were talking about him proclaiming his faith and kind of trying to stay out of the path of labels. We're like, they're definitely, and him getting so much attention, we're like, they're not going to make this easy on him. He hasn't heard the last of them, from not signing with Sony. And then he drops that song, and there's that line in there twice. The song starts off with that. And he's essentially saying he's not afraid to fight back if they keep bothering him. I also believe that my personal belief is his open faith has led him, or just his faith. It doesn't necessarily have to be that it's because it's open, but I believe that's why he's been able to keep strong enough to not accept the deals or be forced to accept the deals. He has a song called Angels where it sounds like, he's talking about that. You can't touch me, I've got angels, is a line in the song. I also, like I said, I just believe he's been allowed to make it this far because of God. And remember, they don't always win, so to me it's possible. Another thing that I like about him is he's good representation for, the non-preachy, non-judgmental angle that I feel we should be on. And he's been open about how he strayed from his faith, and then he realized he needed to quit, trying to run, trying to hide from God, which he said in his own words on this mixtape as well. And I remember seeing a tweet of his where it seemed like it came out of nowhere that his faith had been renewed and it wasn't going anywhere. It was here to stay now. And I like that message because we can all wind up in a place where we stray. And I think God knows that and understands that. Doesn't mean, I don't even think he gives up on you in those time periods. So I don't feel that we should give up on people, and we shouldn't be teaching or preaching that he hates you now or he's done with you. No, like, you can always turn around and do what, you feel you need to do. So I like that angle of his storytelling. I like that part of his message. I really feel like I'm being a televangelist today, and I don't, this is not how it's going to be, but in the podcast, I assure you, I'm really uncomfortable about this because I'm private in my faith, but I just really wanted to share this. It's so good. But back to him being, that random kind of cryptic tweet. I wonder if he saw something that made him run back to God. That's what I've been wondering. He has a line in Angels that says, "I ain't going to hell or to Hillman," which people have said to mean that he isn't going to Hollywood because it's essentially hell. And I know he's adamant about staying in Chicago too. So I do find that interesting because usually when you blow up, the first place you go is Hollywood, LA to be specific. Even if you rep your hometown, that's not anywhere near California or even your home country, you still wind up down there, staying there for some period of time, or getting associated with a bunch of people down there. Usually that's what I've seen. But like I said, he's pretty adamant about staying, to Chicago and repping Chicago, and he doesn't seem too eager to get down there or anything. But to close out this topic, because I feel like we've been talking about this, or I have, for a minute, I'm going to link the mixtape below, and you can check it out for yourself, and you can tell me what you think if hip-hop is your thing. If not, still give it a listen. It's not stereotypical hip-hop. It's not what you're thinking, probably. Just give it a listen. It really is good, positive music, and I do feel this guy is woke. Maybe not to the degree that a lot of us are, but I do feel he's seeing some things. He's getting it. And, to close this out, I just would like to recommend seeking out music that makes you feel good. And I can't tell you what that is, only you would know that, but just see how much of a difference it makes when you get some of that music, because I think that's what really got to me, is how I've been listening to all this stuff, even being woke, and I know what's in it, and I didn't even know that music was supposed to make you feel like this, or it could make you feel like this, because it's been so long since we've had good stuff just in airplay and being celebrated. So just go, it doesn't matter what genre, just find some good positive music, and it doesn't matter what the subject matter or whatever, that's again up to you. I'm not telling you to go stick your head into some gospel music, no. Find a genre that works for you and just see what a difference it makes. It's worth it, trust me. Alright, the next topic that I wanted to get into was, when I was picking these topics, I didn't pick them all in one day or at the same time or anything as I was putting this together. And now, I feel like, again, I didn't realize how I was going to come off in that last one. I feel like I was kind of heavy-handed with, the religious theme, and I really didn't. I hope I wasn't. Because I try to keep this podcast open. This is welcome for everybody of any type of faith or lack of faith. I really don't religious or with faith or religious without faith. I don't really know, are you religious without faith? Whatever, but I'm saying it's open for everybody, so, or faith without religion is what I meant to say. But this next topic is pretty important to me because I've been seeing it a lot in the conspiracy community, and it kind of it's disheartening. So again, if I come off preachy, sorry. But understand that I don't want to choose the way anybody else worships or doesn't worship, or whether or not they worship. I'm just glad I get to pick for myself how I express my faith and if I have faith or whatever. So I want to make sure that you understand that I respect that for you too before I say anything, because that's one of the most important things about my channel, period. or how I get down in presenting myself to the conspiracy community is that I'm trying to reach as many people as possible, so I don't want to say anything or do anything that makes you feel unwelcome. So, and I've rambled enough already, but my next topic is generalizations of religion. I expect that sort of thing from the world because it's been pushed for a while. And not just with religion, we do this with everything. It's propaganda. They teach you how to feel about certain groups. Conspiracy theorists are one. That's one of many examples of them conditioning you on how to feel about people or things or anything that they want. People aren't here for Jesus or his father anymore. I get that. That's the popular mindset these days. I understand. However, from the conspiracy community that's supposed to be so woke and so open-minded, I expect better. And here's the thing, I identify as a Christian. First, I'm fully willing to admit that elements of Christianity have been controlled and were infiltrated long ago. And I also don't play the no true Scotsman fallacy. And if you don't know what that is, that's basically like if anytime a Christian does something bad, I just run around and say, oh, they're not really a Christian, just to avoid criticism. I don't do that. I don't like that. And another thing is, I've been taught through my religion to respect the fact that not everyone will believe as you do, and that's okay. Because, even if you were to somehow be able to force them to go your way, God knows people's hearts. And he knows whether they want to be there or not. He didn't ask you to force others or to make the decision for others. You're supposed to worry about yourself. You can share your view with them, but you don't have the right to try to force them into any direction. So bottom line, I respect an individual's right to believe or not believe as they see fit. Now, you let some of these people tell it, and because I do follow a religion and I do believe in God, it's not possible for me to respect that. You let some of these people tell it, and every Christian is shouting, "Go my way or burn in hell." And I don't even believe in the hellfire doctrine. So you'll never hear me tell you you're going to hell or anybody else. Even if I did, I don't feel that's the way to talk to people. But let them tell it, and it is. And I'm here to tell you that, a lot of these false generalizations are just that, false generalizations, and I'm tired of it because, again, it's really frequent. I'm even seeing it from people that I respect and follow. Are there some like that? Absolutely. Hands down. And I'm not ashamed to admit that or afraid to admit that. But I know that there are many who aren't like that as well. I don't take on Jehovah's role and try to dole out judgment. That's not my position. But again, when I see these people start up with this, all religions are controlled and you're asleep if you follow one, I get tired of that too. I feel it's manipulative because maybe you figured religion doesn't work for you. And again, respect, because that's the decision you had to come to through your experiences, okay? But I'm gonna need you to not try to preach that to other people. And, I don't care if you're criticizing specific churches or whatever, or specific elements of a religion, but I just don't want to hear that it's all controlled, it's all fake, because you don't know that. I happen to know for a fact that's a lie. Maybe in your experiences, that's what you've experienced, and then I wish you would express that, but again, all of it, no. When I get to hearing that stuff, again, especially from the people I respect, and a lot of them are adamant about it, like they keep preaching it. It makes me not even want to identify as a conspiracy theorist or really even be in this community. But I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let them make me stop, because I know that this stuff is the truth, a lot of it, or at least I know it's in the right direction, even if I'm wrong about things. And I know that a lot of this stuff needs to be heard, but it's discouraging nonetheless. Christians are already getting it from the world, and I see them bash religions, period, so I know that it's not just Christians, but from my experience, Christians are getting it from the world, trust. We definitely are. So when I turn around and we're getting it here too, it's like, Jesus, come on, man. Like, chill out. My thing is, some people find fellowship in religion, and that's probably going to be something that you want more of as they continue to push this anti-God, anti-people with faith or beliefs agenda, you're probably going to want more fellowship with people who do believe, who do have faith. So that's one reason where it helps. I mean, that's one place where it helps. Some people go to find answers and a deeper understanding of their Bible, through religion. And you can get mad about that. Well, you should just go to God. It should just be personal. That might work for you. And there's nothing that says that you can't have both either. I don't like that notion, because I personally feel I have both. But some people like to study with others. Some people like to have a discussion on it. Some people might not be able to come to those answers. And how do you know God doesn't have hasn't sent them to a place where they can have trustworthy people to help them go over it with them? People who have had more experience looking into it or whatever. You don't. And some people just feel that's where they need to be. And that should be the end of it. As long as they're not being misled and you need to prove that, or they're doing the misleading, why should it matter to you? To me, you're being a hypocrite, because while you wouldn't want anybody to come tell you about how you decided to have your faith or non-faith, I mainly see people who identify as Christian but just follow the Bible and their own personal prayer doing this. I haven't really seen a lot of the non-believers in this community coming like this, and that's what's crazy. A lot of the non-believers seem to just respect that, I'm guessing because they desire that respect to non-believe. So thank you to people who are like that. Like, I appreciate that. But my thing is, if your concern is the false prophets, then why can't you just call them out and leave the generalizing alone? I have issues with false prophets too. I don't like people who fleece their flock. I can't stand it. And I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Jesus say to give freely, or give as freely as you got? Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that applies to, you don't have to charge people or try to rob people to get the truth of the Bible out to them, or to at least get them on the path to wanting to know God or understand Jesus and the Bible. So all these $1 million preachers with jets and big mansions and cars, I don't condone that, and I don't make excuses for it, and I don't want to. And for the people tickling the ears of the unbelievers or just telling people what they want to hear, I don't like that stuff either. Twisting the Bible to make a buck or to please people. That's not cool with me. And I'm also not down with the, what would you call them? The holier than thou types, the ones who want to slap you with scripture and play judgment when 9 times out of 10, their own backyards aren't clean themselves. And even if it's that one time where they could be correct and they're not hypocritical, that's still not their position to play. I don't like that stuff, and I don't make excuses for that either. I get it. I get people are tired of them. And you aren't entirely wrong with how you feel to be tired of that. Who likes that stuff? But it's such a constant negative tone that they speak on all of us with. Any of us who follow religion, that stuff gets old to me. As old as you are, or as old as it is to have those people come at you like that, or for you to see those things, that's how old it is for me to continue to have you make assumptions about people who follow a specific path in their faith that isn't yours. I'm tired of it. And to me, it's more of that divisive agenda, which is hilarious because these people are the first ones to cry about how religion is divisive. And in all actuality, I always say it's people. Religion is not a tangible thing. People are divisive. If I were to sit in a room with somebody who is, followed Judaism, a person who followed Islam, and a person who was a Buddhist, what's to stop us from getting along? If I'm respectful like I need to be of the fact that they can have their differing beliefs and it's not on me to change them, and they all have that same level of respect as well, what's to stop us from getting along? Nothing. There's no reason. The Bible doesn't tell me to attack others who believe differently than me, and I was never taught that in my religion, so there's no excuse. My grandmother was a Christian. And my grandfather, I'm imagining he's an atheist, possibly an agnostic, but He's definitely not the most faithful person. I can assure you that. Far from religious. Far from it. And for over 40 years until my grandmother's passing, they had a marriage. They had a successful marriage. And I'm sure they had their ups and downs like every couple does, but religion did not tear them apart. It's time to stop blaming religion and start blaming the people. If you can't be open-minded enough to respect others, that's you. Because there's too many examples otherwise showing me that people can be respectful of people's differing views. I personally, to start winding this on down, I personally subscribe to my religion because it made the waking up process easier. It made it a very easy process. Once my eyes were opened, everything I had been taught about pagan religions, well that too, but pagan holidays, celebrations, and the warnings about divination and magic and the false political system, I was taught all of that through my religion. I'm not kidding you. And all of it fell right into place and made sense. Because I could see the very basic stuff with it where God might not like that, separation of church and state and divination and magic and such, but it's so much deeper than that. And I understand why he'd be opposed to those things, because I understand where they're coming from. It made complete and utter sense. And if I didn't have my religion, I'm telling you, I'd probably be the most sleep person. The most sleep person you could imagine, that'd be me. I wouldn't even want to hear this stuff. And this isn't to convert you. Let me get that out. I hope that isn't how it's coming off either. I'm not trying to be slick and cute. I meant what I said about you're free to believe how you want to believe. This is not to change your mind. I'm just defending my position because I feel it's being attacked. Even if that's not how those people mean to come off or what they mean to do. Maybe they're just venting because they're tired of the other side of it. And again, I can see that, but just stop. My thing is just stop generalizing. I'm just telling you all of religion isn't bad. And I hope that I've proven to you that I'm not blind. I can see where the problems are. And I don't have an issue with you calling them out. I think they should be called out if we want it to get better. But I'm just saying, I don't believe God has an issue with religion. I don't think you're wrong to find a suitable one. I think you need to use your discernment and find a trustworthy place to go to. Because there are manipulators and deceivers out there and false prophets. But I don't think he has a problem with religion. And I just get kind of annoyed when I hear people say stuff like that. You don't know that. And just like you don't like people taking on his role to judge your life or your choices, which is fair, and telling you what he wants from you. Don't turn around and tell people how or where he wants people worshiping him. And I'm going to let that go ahead and let that be my final words on the matter. I hope I came across coherent. I hope I got my point across without coming off the way that I fear I did. So the final topic I'm going to get into is how to discern the truth in things. More specifically, how to find the truth in the research that we do. And I don't have a catch-all answer to this. Now, this is something you'll most likely have to figure out yourself. All I can do is tell you what works for me. And I personally use prayer, common sense, and not to get all hippie, new agey on you, but vibes. And again, I know that probably sounds crazy, but you have to be careful, because when I first woke up, after I had my waking up experience, I went looking for answers on YouTube. I woke up off of YouTube. I went looking for answers on the internet, and I found so many WordPress blogs. And when I was first waking up, I didn't really stop to think, people could just be putting info out there because you're just ready to consume info and just trying to get answers. You're not thinking about who's fake, who's real. And I didn't even know what the term shill was or what it would have meant. That would have went right over my head. So I had no idea what to look for and what to kind of steer clear of or what. But as I started waking up a little bit more, some of those WordPress blogs that I had been following or thought were so knowledgeable were giving you about that 50% truth, 50% lie, 90% truth, 10% lie. Some of them were snakes in the grass, I feel, when I went back and looked from a more knowledgeable angle. So you got to be careful. You got to try to use your discernment. And these are just the little tools the little ways that I personally developed as I'm researching, or as I've been researching, to kind of help guide me. Now, the way I use vibes is usually with people, not with written stuff or anything, or looking into historical stuff. If a person, like, I just try to determine if a person's sending me red flags, and I'm usually more alert to what they're saying. I don't just shut them down right away, because I'm not a perfect being. Maybe I'm getting red flags for who knows why. Maybe I ate something weird earlier that day. But I try to, continue to listen to what they're saying, but I am more alert. Like, everything, even something that might be said in a joking manner, whereas I would let that slide with the average person, I'm kind of like, is that something? Maybe that's a little too paranoid or not good, but still, And you should try to pay attention to what everybody is saying in conspiracy research, but when I get that feeling, again, every little word matters to me, because deceivers can be slick. They can be hard to catch. Look into Delphi tactics. You gotta listen to some of this stuff. Let me give you an example. I can't quote it verbatim, but I'll try. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong about any elements of this event or this occurrence, I can fully admit that. But I was listening to a person I greatly respect. He had a radio show, and one night a caller called in, and he was talking calmly, and he came out the gate with, "I'm a Christian," and the guy I watch is a Christian, so they kind of talked about that for a minute, and then he started discussing the Bible, and I was getting a bad feeling from him because he was saying some stuff. And let me just say this: just because you say something that I might disagree with, that doesn't equal bad feelings. So just in case you're thinking I'm one of those people that can't handle a dissenting opinion, no, I assure you that's not what it was about. Because in fact, this guy's radio show that I watch, I adore all his content, but I don't usually disagree with him, but there are some things that I disagree with him on pretty strongly. But I feel he's one of the people I respect the most in this whole research game. But the caller, back to this, I don't operate off feeling alone, so I ignored it. As I was getting these little vibes from him. Pretty soon, he started dropping some little nuggets that sounded like something Alice Bailey or Manly P. Hall would approve of. And those are some people to look into in this research, but I wouldn't really say you'd admire them. And he went to a point where he's like, we don't even need the 10 commandments because we as humans know what to do. And then he was on Jesus was probably just a man, a legend or some regular guy that was built up out of proportion, or his reputation was built up. And he was saying all this stuff in the mix of other things, just trying to slip these little ideas in here every now and again. Again, look into these kind of tactics that they use, Delphi tactics being one. And another caller called in, and he said, well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that Satan wrote the New Testament. And he's like, oh no, I didn't say that, when very clearly earlier on in his call he did. At the very least, he strongly implied it, but it was there. And that at that point I was like, okay, this guy, you kind of bold-faced lied here. He was very, very sneaky, and a person that, when they get called out, that's how they act. And it was really creepy. So the whole conversation on his part was weird, and you start feeling strange too. That was the other thing. So I sent the episode to my friend. I was like, listen to this part. And I didn't tell her anything beyond that. She's like, what do I look for? I was like, no, I'm not going to tell you, because I didn't want to lead her in any way. I was like, I want you to hear it for yourself and then kind of give me in detail what you're feeling on it. So she listened, and, right after I guess she was done listening, she texted me and she's like, this guy's a snake. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. She's like, this guy's a snake. And I was like, well, what makes him a snake? And she was listing all the things that I listed that had made me feel weird. And she was like, it's creepy because he was really smooth and smart with it, but he's a snake. And I'm like, yep, you get it. You heard what I heard. And that's how these types do. So, that, I guess that's an example of when vibes were sending me red alarms or red alerts, raising the red flag. And, that's like one of the best examples. And I've seen on 2 other occasions in this work, and they usually pop up on some type of call-in show or podcast, and they start out with, well, I'm a Christian, and then they start trying to introduce you to Luciferian ideals. Every time I've seen it. 3 people now total. And again, they try to slip it in there in the mix of what they're saying that's legit, and it's insane when you catch it. And once you learn about that Hegelian dialectic and then trying to watch the news, it's like that same feeling, where stuff's just wide open. It's nuts. So I would be on the lookout for stuff like that. If somebody's giving you bad vibes, just listen to what they're saying. Like, I didn't cut the guy off. I didn't cut the video off. I listened to all that he was saying from the moment he called in to the moment that, I can't remember if that was the end of the show or if he hung up and went on with another caller, but I listened to him in his entirety. So, I got what he was saying. I listened, even though I disagreed, but, it just, know about that guy. So I would say listen still, but, keep your guard up, and definitely that if you're getting bad vibes or bad energy you're feeling from a person, probably should be listening to that. I'm just saying, because I feel like that's one of the strongest tools, or at least be on guard with them. Now, my other thing is not for everyone. Prayer, I understand that doesn't work for everybody. Everybody's not down with that. So I could have some non-believer listeners or whatever, and that's completely fine. This is, again, not a conversion session. That's not what I do here. But I don't know how helpful what I'm about to say to you is, but feel free to keep listening or skip ahead to my next step, or maybe you can kind of modify this step to work for you. I don't know. But if I'm on a topic where all the info I can find is confusing or contradictory, or it's just not helpful, or it's a topic that I have a bad feeling about, like maybe I feel it's been pushed out there by maybe a controlled opposition, or it's just basically a psyop, I open myself up to God in prayer. And it's like, I'm like, you've already helped me wake up to this psycho system, but I'm lost here. I don't know where else to go on this research. And there's a particular topic that's been going around, and I don't really want to call attention to it because I think it might be starting to die off, and I kind of want to let it. But I was having bad feelings on it, and I prayed. I did my research on it first because I was introduced to it by a friend. And I was like, no, this isn't sounding right. And I started doing research, and I found basic scientific stuff that kind of debunked it, or, basic research. But I was like, I need to come at this from another angle, because this particular topic, I come at it from a spiritual angle. I don't do this with everything. This might be the only topic even, but this particular thing, the spiritual, is what debunked it for me. So I prayed, and once I prayed, I found an abundance of research that I did not find when I was on my own, and I didn't look up any more specific terms or anything. I just went back into the research the way I always research, and I found it. And I prayed again on another occasion, doing more research into it, and found even more information to build off of that research and some new information. So I definitely do feel prayer helps, because I researched into it before on multiple occasions, and I never found any of that stuff. So it's just funny to me that, when I did open myself up and I needed help, I got it. And I answered all my own questions, and I know where I stand on that particular topic. And it's just, I haven't had to change my mind on it or get confused again since I did that. So definitely that helped me. That definitely helped me out a lot with that. So again, I don't know how helpful that will be to you if you're not down with prayer or believing. But if you are, I would recommend that, because I do help. Like I said earlier in this podcast, my religion helped me wake up. So in a way, God helped me wake up. So I definitely think he's going to help me out with the research, And the last thing, like I said, is common sense. And common sense stuff, you just think, that everybody, I feel, has it. Some people just don't like to use it or don't know how, but everybody has it. And that, I don't really know how else to break that down to you. It's just some stuff, I guess Alex Jones would be one. When you watch this guy's video or you see him get angry and he starts saying this stuff, I just feel it should be common sense. He's telling the truth about a lot of stuff, but whether or not this guy's fake or legit should be common sense for you to figure out. This guy is if I had to pick anybody that's kind of too well known in this community that I feel is a disinfo agent, besides David Icke, I'd have to throw Alex Jones in there. If you see the compilation videos of him getting angry or shouting, you'll see what I'm saying. And common sense just would sit here and tell me this guy's full of crap, you know? So I would say, you know, just that to me is one of the strongest tools as well, because I see some people falling for some things that just common sense should be shutting down for you. So make sure you got that on your side before you get into this stuff so you don't get suckered into anything. But I would definitely say it's important if you're just starting out, or you know this, or even if you've been in this for a long time, to keep your eyes open, because certain topics and events in the conspiracy community recently they made me realize that I need to be a lot more discerning myself. I need to pay more attention to that instead of having it be a passive thing that I do. Kind of push it more towards the forefront, because you know, Cass Sunstein admitted to nudging, and I think he has a book on this as well, which is just infiltrating or astroturfing and pushing lies to cause disarray. And I've noticed the rise in what I feel to be disinfo agents. Although I do think people can get paranoid and cry shill a little too early. You know, you disagreeing with me, or you having a completely opposite opinion, or maybe even doing a couple things that I think are a little out there, doesn't automatically make you a shill. But there are other traits that you can put together to maybe try to, you know, say, to be able to better say that somebody is fake. Although, yes, people have the right to be on guard in this world, though, and oftentimes for good reason. But personally, I just feel if you take what you've learned in your research and run whatever they're saying up against it, and then maybe check out their history and see if they'd have any ulterior motives, and then maybe, again, depending on you and some of the advice I gave a bit ago, it might make some things easier for you in your pursuit of knowledge. Like, I found that this has helped me keep a clearer field of research. And it's not perfect, but it's not as cluttered with disinfo minds as it could be. So, I want to thank you for joining me on my first podcast. And I am not the best host. I hope to get better. As I go along, there's only one way to do that, and that's to keep working at it. If you've made it this far, much thanks. This is not how it's going to go every week. I just felt that these 3 topics would be good to start with, because you could kind of get to know me. I know that in this community, we have a right to kind of be a little bit paranoid, just a little bit, not a lot, but we have a right to kind of be suspicious of people, because a lot of people do come in for various reasons and cause a mess. So I figured this way you might get to know me a little bit in a way that's not too invasive to me, but is a little bit more informative on who I am and how I get down and what I'm about. So, but at the same time, I felt that I could also kind of put some helpful advice out there on what I've learned, or, you know, maybe turn you in a direction you might want to go. So again, thank you for joining me. I promise to have some more interesting topics, get down into some nitty-gritty stuff next time. If at all you have any type of topics or any type of advice or criticism, any of that, I will be leaving my Gmail in the YouTube description, and wherever you're listening to this at, if there's any way to message me, feel 100% free. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment. I'm open to all types of discussion, and don't be afraid to do it. You're not bothering me. And again, just one final thanks for joining me. This has been Noir Talks, Noir Thoughts, and I hope next time you'll be here for my weird ramblings.